rose to protect her, India McDonald faced Australia's wildfires head-on. With her father, Sean, they fought for 5 hours, saving their house, cars and garden in rural Victoria. The professionals are struggling too. Thousands of firefighters are battling to contain the wildfires, scorching the states of Victoria and New South Wales, an area home to more than 13 million people.
It was once the front hit, the wind just picked up and embers just took off, and that was it. Everything then just went woof.
It was always going to come one day, and the conditions now are dry everywhere, we've got no chance, no water, nothing. So.
Bushfire conditions. As emergency level blazes flare across Victoria State, tens of thousands of holidaymakers are told to get out.
This is a high-risk day for Victoria. This is a day we do not often see. Our state is dry, it is going to be very hot, it is going to be very, very windy. People, get out now. If you don't, you've got to stay across the conditions and listen to those warnings through the day.
In Adelaide, we've got 2 very large fires there that are continuing to threaten lives and property this evening, but we've had over 154 fires across South Australia today, and our crews have worked very hard under these extreme fire conditions, temperatures over 40 degrees, winds at times gusting over 50 kilometres an hour. It's been very difficult conditions, but people have worked very hard.
Well, and they've been working hard, Andrew, haven't they, for it seems like forever, I guess, for your staff. How do they cope with that? How do you manage that sort of issue?
Oh yes, look, this has been a very long season already. Our fire.
And a lifetime of memories.
All of my possessions have been totally incinerated. There is just simply nothing left, nothing at all, except ash.
She spent last night in an evacuation centre.
This is what's left of my bedroom. It's unbelievable. And it is, an indication of how ferocious the fires have been.
Over 60 homes have been destroyed. Residential streets resemble a war zone.
The really sad thing is that so much of the housing stuff around here was, hand-built by people, making their own homes and stuff.
Ash Morland has spent his life in a small coastal town. He expected fires to hit it, but never thought it would be this bad.
It was a bustling holiday town.
You have never, ever lived through anything like that, ever.
Scorched brick, twisted gates, no pattern to this destruction. The fire raged through the town at random. Locals left counting the cost and recounting the terror.
All you do is put your life at risk. There's no need to, just go, just get out and go. When you see that fire and you just, you're not meant to be there, just go.
Said it was like a fireball, that it just came in 2 directions.
Helen Dwyer was home on her own.
Gone. Everything's gone. We've lost everything in here. It's devastating for everybody here. In our street, there's only 4 houses left standing.
The Fletcher family wanted to defend their place, but couldn't. There was no water.
They obviously haven't had a chance to save any of them.
The locals who stayed to fight say this was the first house in this cluster to go up. The embers had jumped from over the water about 1 kilometre away, and once it hit here, it just jumped from house to house. With no phone reception, mates drove street to street, doing a roll call, one making a terrible discovery. A man died in this car trying to get out. Another man found dead at his home, and back in town, a woman is unaccounted for.
She didn't want to leave. 3 people went in there to go get her out, and 3 people come back without her, so yeah.
Those who stayed say the fire arrived so quickly. The afternoon southerly was meant to help conditions, but it only made things worse.
Yeah, this is actually, oh my God, all these houses are going to burn down.
Embers raining down, lighting up the coastline.
What are you doing? The fire's coming. It's literally like 20 houses up.
Too late to leave, hundreds headed to the water bracing for impact. The flames licking across roads, forcing drivers into the lake. For those who remained in town, a simple garden hose, their only weapon. And the fight isn't over yet. There's now a town to rebuild. But the community is adamant this won't beat them.
nothing else to say really. We've just got to pick up the pieces now and move on.
Oh yeah, we'll be building back here again. Yeah, it's a good place.
Protesters in the thousands. Tear gas, face masks, brutal crackdowns. Hong Kong protests show no sign of slowing as the city heads into 2020. Reuters correspondent James Pomfret has been in the middle of the action.
Covering these protests has been just an intense experience over the past 6 months. For the protesters, I can't imagine how it must be for them.
The movement first kicked off in response to a bill that would have allowed Hong Kongers to be extradited to mainland China. But even after it was withdrawn, outrage caused by the police response triggered a broader movement, calling for greater democracy.
We've seen an evolution from peaceful marches involving perhaps 1 million or 2 million people, and it's just built from there. The protesters have been more and more willing to use violence. It's been rather haphazard. Sometimes the tactics have been scattershot, and it's hard to see where sort of strategically the protesters want to go ultimately with this. There's still 4 more demands that haven't been met, and so I think the protests will ripple on.
The protesters say they won't end until all 5 demands have been met. These include an independent inquiry into the police handling of the protests and amnesty for arrested protesters. Since June, police have arrested 6,060 people in total. The police say they've been restrained with an appropriate use of force. They've defended their conduct, including firing water cannons and tear gas, in response to what they call escalating illegal and violent acts of protesters. The movement has also drawn in world superpowers, Trump signing 2 bills in support of the movement. But was this pivotal, or a red rag tied to a bull?
So this passing of the act, it's sure to anger, and it already has angered China. They're livid. This is interference in their own domestic affairs.
Meanwhile, in Taiwan, which is claimed by China, some are watching carefully, including its leader Tsai Ing-wen.
So if the pro-independence leaning president of Taiwan, if she gets re-elected for another 4 years, that's going to be a headache for China. She's going to be a thorn in the side.
But China's also got its eye on Taiwan. It's Xi Jinping's long-term dream to bring Taiwan under its thumb. Back in Hong Kong, clashes, the chaos and the violence are the new normal in the city.
Can you talk us through what's happened this morning?
Well, it's been what you call a disaster zone. So, gosh, no one can. We had in our mind what it might look like. I've never been through anything like this personally, and it was horrendous. But very grateful and thankful that the majority of people all down here are alive. But with that wind, the way it all panned out, if it had been any other way than it was, we would have had a massive news story. Unfortunately, bad for us because it would have been horrendous. It was like a huge truck coming. We could hear the roar. It was black as like midnight, black as black could be. There was smoke in the air. We all had masks. Well, most people had masks on. We were ready to jump into the water. Because there's on the edge here, there's a rock wall, which is a barrier for radiant heat. Well, it's not a barrier built for that. It's built for tying boats to, and stopping the water coming in to wash away the land where the camp park is here. But it's a barrier for what we can use as a natural barrier to prevent radiated heat hitting our bodies. So we're ready to do that, and and it was, you could hear it roaring. I was really blessed to have a close friend who was used to be a fire chief here ring me and let me know. He said, David, it's at the airport. It's just hit the airport. So I knew that's like 5-7 minutes away. So I knew, she's coming. And then I knew also that when it hit town that we were going to hear sirens. So it's hard to explain what it's like. So, we've got Christian belief and faith in Jesus, and got to the Bible, and I have a lot of faith. But you still, when you stared at something like this, it's so, it's just so big. It's such a big, and it's so unpredictable. And so I just started praying, and like I told ABC before, it was literally when I heard those sirens, because like I said, I knew it was at the airport, and then when it hit the town, the sirens went, and I just said, Lord, because the wind was sort of like, it wasn't blowing crazy, thank God. It was sort of like swirling, and we felt the breeze of the fire come. Like we actually, literally, when it hit town, you felt it. We knew that. I knew what it was, like a big gust, but then it only lasted 5 seconds.
Let's move straight to France, because there's paralysis across large parts of that country today, with the biggest public sector strikes in decades. Let me just show you some of the live pictures coming into us from Paris, because real disturbances and more clashes there. In the last half an hour, 40 minutes, we've seen tear gas being fired by the police at those protesters. Huge crowds there in Paris, just like in other cities across the country, because of course millions of people taking to the streets, and there you see another volley of tear gas being fired, and the various journalists there, and so many people out there on the streets, and they are protesting because of planned proposed changes to pension laws that Emmanuel Macron and his government want to bring in. And we've seen in so many different places in France these scenes through the course of the day. It's paralysed France, as I was saying there earlier in the introduction, with schools, with hospitals, with transport, rail, air flights, all being affected today, with so many public sector workers walking out and joining these scenes. But these some of the worst clashes we've seen in Paris itself. And
battalions of the rail unions are many people from the broad left in France. A lot of teachers I've seen out here today. The Paris left has seen this as a moment to come out and show what they feel deep down, but which they haven't been able to express very much, which is their deep loathing of President Macron.
Hugh, I hope you can hear me okay. We know the crowds are very determined. How determined is Emmanuel Macron and his government to force these changes through?
Well, Macron's selling point, his identifying feature, and what will arguably stand in the best chance at the next election of re-election, is his determination to see through reforms which others failed to see through.
International help is arriving. By this weekend, the US will have sent nearly 100 firefighters. Canada has sent more than 60. The Australian military is using planes and helicopters to douse flames while preparing for possible evacuations.
Go! Go!
On the ground, police are trying to keep people out of fire zones, areas that grow and change suddenly with the wind.
Looks like it's jumped the highway up west of us, and it's just roared down like a bloody freight train, and it's actually cut through, and it's suddenly's come through, and it's shot it bloody up north now.
Thousands of residents along the east coast have been pushed to the water's edge, if not in it.
The fire is along the beach now, and we can't get out of Bateman's Bay because all the highways are blocked.
In Sydney, the mayor was determined the show must go on for the new year. The spectacle was granted an exemption to a statewide fireworks ban, despite a petition signed by nearly 300,000 people calling for them to be cancelled.
It is the most beautiful place in the world to celebrate New Year's Eve, and that's why people say it's on their bucket list. They want to come to Australia to do that. It does put us on the international calendar, and it is really important for the economy.
The cost of this bushfire crisis is